Welcome to the second week of an Eagle Forum. I'm Jason Nelson. I'm one of the pastors here on behalf of Pastor Steve Riggle and Grace Woodlands Church. We want to welcome you. We're glad that we can host this. At Grace Woodlands, we believe that Jesus is Lord over every area and realm of reality, including governance, and that the church has a biblical mandate to impact and influence the day, particularly impacting government. We believe God raises up kings according to his word, and he removes kings. And for whatever divine reason, he has imparted an amazing responsibility to us in this nation for us to partner with him in deciding who would govern among us. So we as a church take this very seriously. It's not political for us, it's biblical. So in saying that, I invite you before we begin to stand, and we're going to go before God in prayer, and then we're going to say our pledges and then go from there. Heavenly Father, we come before your throne of grace this evening with gratitude in our hearts. Your word says that every good and perfect gift comes from above. It comes from you, and we have so much to be grateful for. We're grateful for life and love and laughter, for faith and freedom, for those who fight to protect and defend our freedom. We thank you for this evening in this place where we can come to a safe place to talk about your business. We also approach your throne of grace with confidence, not because of who we are, but because of who Jesus is. And we pray all these things in his name. And we ask that you pour out your Holy Spirit upon us now. We ask that you help us discern and decide your will and your way for our lives individually and collectively. We ask you to give us wisdom to discern who among us is the one that you want to be in the place of authority. We ask, God, also that you raise up your church throughout the nation, that you raise us up to be a prophetic voice of truth, to be salt and light in a world that is dark and bland at best. God, raise up your church across this nation, particularly during this election cycle, to stand and to vote. God, if we would just stand and vote, we would see amazing changes in this nation. But more importantly, we ask that you sweep across this nation from sea to shining sea, from Canada down to the Gulf of America, and you empower your church to be your hands and feet in a world that desperately needs your touch. I pray for the candidates here, each and every one of them. I thank you for them. They have decided to step into the fire. Remind each of them that when you are walking with them, there is a fourth man in the fire. Put your hand of protection upon them and their families. And I pray that tonight be a night that glorifies you in everything we say and do. We ask for a spirit of unity, a spirit of truth, and we ask for your Holy Spirit to be among us and to rule and reign in this place. We pray all this in the strong name of Jesus and in the power of the Holy Spirit. And all God's people said, amen. Would you remain standing, please, as we say a pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the greatest state in the Union, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. You may be seated. We have the privilege of having Justice Chambers with us tonight to be our moderator. If y'all can go ahead and come on in and have a seat, that would be great. Before you came in, there was a place to write out your questions. So we ask that if you continue to do that, that you write them out legibly. All right, I know this is a church, but if you just set aside the Greek and the Hebrew for tonight, that'd be good. Write out in English, legibly. And then we ask that you refrain from personal attacks and that you deal with the issues pertinent to that position that is within the forum at that time. We just thank you once again for being here and for your cooperation and treating this place as a sacred place that is designed to honor God in everything we do. Let's welcome Justice Chambers.
Okay, welcome everybody. The forum that we're going to be following tonight, we're going to have three separate forums. The first is for the 359th District Court here in Montgomery County, and the candidates are Michael Gutzman and Joanne Linzer. The format we'll follow is each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening, 2 minutes to make a closing, and in between that, we will have questions in an alternating fashion on who goes first. The questions I will read, but these are not my questions. I'm reading questions that were submitted on these cards. If there are some that are very closely related, I may combine those just to keep it flowing. So y'all welcome the two candidates, Michael Gutzman and Joanne Linzer, please. All right, we're going to be generally going in alphabetical order for the opening statements. So, Mr. Gutzman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kent, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. This stuff matters, and voters matter, and people that come out and they learn about these candidates make informed decisions, and that's what we need here in Montgomery County. My name is Michael Gutzman. I'm a chief prosecutor at the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. I'm the chief of the Major Crime Section. I'm also board certified in criminal law, and I'm looking to be your next judge of the 359th District Court. Let me tell you why. The 359th District Court is a criminal court. It handles criminal felonies, some of our most important crimes, all the way from low-level drug cases to capital murder. You need someone as your next judge in the 359th District Court that has relevant experience and current experience, and I have both. I have some great support in my race. I am honored to have the support of law enforcement. I have an endorsement from your former district attorney, Brett Ligon. I have endorsements from 2 former Montgomery County sheriffs. I have endorsements from the Houston Police Officers Union and their 5,300 members. I have endorsements from the 28,000 members of the Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas, the Coalition of Police and Sheriffs, and as of today, the Montgomery County Law Enforcement Association. I am the consensus law enforcement choice to be the next judge in this race. I am also honored to have endorsements from 10 police chiefs in this county, people that are working hard every day to keep you safe. Ladies and gentlemen, that's me, that's what I've done professionally, but I also want you to know who I am as a person. Maybe my best endorsement is my wife, Brittany, who is the mother of my 5 children, who's here today. Thank you, honey, for being here. You don't get to the right of me. I practice what you preach. I believe in limited government. I believe that judges should apply the law, not decide it. I believe in our Second Amendment rights. And I'm asking you humbly for your vote to be the next judge of the 359th. Thank you.
Ms. Linzer?
Thank you. My name is Joanne Linzer, and I'm running to be judge of the 359th District Court because experience truly matters when public safety is on the line. I have spent over 2 decades in criminal law. I have stood with victims. I've stood next to the accused. I've stood in front of a jury over 120 times. I've handled tens of thousands of cases, from traffic tickets to capital murder. I have trained prosecutors, supervised lawyers, and in addition to running my own practice, I currently teach new future lawyers at Baylor University School of Law. When I say this, I mean it. I'm the only candidate who is ready to start day one. I bring the experience of being board certified for more than a decade. I bring 10 years of experience from the corporate world. I bring being a lawyer for almost a quarter of a century. I have been able to work with young lawyers. I've been able to work in courtrooms across the state of Texas. I served as a prosecutor for 18 years. I've been a defense lawyer for 5. That makes me fair, that makes me balanced. I'm the only candidate ready to start day one. The 359th District Court needs experience, balance, and steady leadership. That's what I offer. I would love to earn your support. Thank you.
All right. right, because we're alternating the order, the first question, Mr. Linzer, you'll start first. With respect to criminal offenses, what is your view on alternatives to fines and jail, such as community service?
Well, one thing that I've learned over the years is not every case is the same. But in a criminal district court, you're dealing with felony cases. And what that means is that these are the most serious of the cases that come before a judge in the 359th District Court. So just simple community service to deal with a case in that kind of a court probably would not be something that we would do. But there are great alternatives in our office or in our courthouse. The district attorney's office, in their wisdom, has helped to create some alternatives to prosecution, such as the Veterans Court. So individuals who have been veterans and because of their service, maybe suffer from PTSD or have an issue that they need help with in order to rehabilitate them so that we can keep them from reoffending. And they have a great process that someone will go through to determine if they meet the qualifications to participate in that court. That has been a very successful program to give veterans the resources that they need to deal with the trauma of fighting for our country so that they don't end up in a position where they reoffend. I believe programs such as the Veterans Court are good alternatives. But trust me when I say that in Montgomery County, if someone commits a crime and it is a heinous crime, it's an aggressive crime, it's an assaultive crime, it's a drug crime, we're gonna take that punishment seriously. And so there needs to be some balance, there needs to be some temperament, and you need a judge that can look at every case from different angles and look at the people who are in front of them differently with their own history and their own case, not treat everyone the same. Thanks.
Mr. Gutzman, I'll repeat the question. With respect to criminal offenses, what is your view on alternatives to fine or jail, such as community service?
Well, it's a good question because we do have alternatives in appropriate cases. It is a standard condition, in fact, of probation to do community service. And it doesn't matter whether you do a theft or you do a low-level drug offense or you do a criminal mischief, which is where you break something. When we have youthful offenders that deserve second chances, we often employ community supervision and deferred adjudication in those cases, which is a standard offer from the district attorney's office. And when you're on community supervision, it is important to us and our district attorney, Mike Holly, that an offender goes back and serves the community to try to repair some of the wrong that's been done. And on a typical case like a state jail felony, which would be less than a gram of narcotics, or on a case where you have someone that's stolen, maybe a first-time offender, over $2,500, prison isn't necessarily the first choice. If they have an opportunity to go back into our community and pay restitution to the victim and do community service, it makes Montgomery County a better place. The 359th District Court is maybe one of the best examples of using alternative sentencing options because the 359th does have the Veterans Court. The 359th has DWI Court. We're trying to get to the root cause of some of those problems, and so things like community service, things like rehabilitative programs, things like electronic monitoring for alcohol and controlled substances are typically alternatives that we would employ in cases where prison isn't the right first choice, and I'm committed to continuing to do that as your next judge.
All right, Mr. Gutzman, we'll start with you on the next question. Apart from your judicial qualifications, why are you the best Republican for this position?
Well, I talked a little bit about that in my opening statement. But what I would ask each and every one of you to do is to consider our professional qualifications, but you should also consider our values. When you go to the ballot box, one of the things that you do as Republicans is you vote your values. That's why Montgomery County is such a great place. You don't get to the right of me. I am pro-life. I am pro-Second Amendment. I believe in limited government. I absolutely believe that the Constitution says what it means and it means what it says. I don't believe in legislating from the bench, and let me tell you why. I've seen what happens when the worst comes about. I started my career at the Harris County District Attorney's Office. I was hired by a Republican, Devin Anderson, and I can tell you firsthand what it looks like when the wheels come off the bus. When the Democrat defense attorneys took over, almost overnight, you could tell that a professional and competent criminal justice system that existed to our south started to deteriorate. And the second order effects of that means that people in that community suffer, and it's often the people with the least. That experience left a scar on my heart, and I can promise you that I didn't have it on the dance card for the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026 to run for district court judge. But I felt that it was incumbent upon me to continue to serve and to ask you for the opportunity to let me serve in this capacity so I can make sure when I go to work every day that that never happens here.
Okay, Ms. Linzer, apart from your judicial qualifications, why are you the best Republican for this position?
It has been on my heart to run for judge of the 359th District Court for a very long time. And that is because I've grown up in this community. I went to high school at McCullough back when it was a high school, for those of you who may remember, back in the 80s when we didn't have a mall. I grew up here. I appreciate the values of this community. And I have worked since being a member of this community for the Republican Party. I have served on committees. I have worked at polls. I have participated in the party's golf tournament. I've done things to make sure that our party stayed strong. And that was well before I ever decided to run for judge. I grew up here. I was baptized here. I met my husband here. This community means a lot to me. My grandkids are growing up here. I want to make sure that we do continue to keep a very strong and conservative value in our community, a Christian-based value in our community. And I believe that not only my experience as a Republican, but as a member of my church and as a member of so many charitable organizations that I've worked with, such as Family Promise of Montgomery County and the Big Mac Club that we founded to raise money for local charities, has gone into making sure that our community stays strong and that we take care of the people who share these Republican values. Thanks.
All right, Ms. Linzer, you're up first on the next question, which is, name the rights listed in the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights, and how would you protect these?
Freedom of speech. As a judge in the criminal district court, everyone has an opportunity to come to the courtroom. Everyone has an opportunity to have their day in court when they're charged with a crime. But the criminal district court in Montgomery County is for those who are accused of a crime and for the state who represents the community. And I believe that being the type of judge that would be fair, who would allow everyone their opportunity to have a day in court, who would make sure that they were available, to make sure that the court was open, to make sure that the people who are victims are taken care of, making sure that our cases go the way that they're supposed to. And I say that with hesitation because the wheels of justice turn slow in the criminal world. That's just the way it works. But when you make sure that you run an efficient court, then you ensure that everyone has the right to be there and to be heard. And so as a judge in the court, I would protect the Constitution. I would make sure that I ruled consistent with the Constitution. It is not my goal to change the law from the bench. It is not my goal to rule against the law. It is always my obligation as a judge to rule with the law, not to change it from the bench. And so that's what I would do to make sure that I protect the Constitution.
All right, Mr. Gutzman, same question. Name the rights listed in the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights, and how would you protect these?
That's the freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. And Kent, as you well know, we're not often dealing with the First Amendment in a criminal district court. We're dealing with the Fourth Amendment and others. But the First Amendment is vital, and there's a reason why the founders put it first. The government does not have the right to silence free speech. And what you're seeing tonight is an expression of free speech, and free speech will always be welcome in the 359th District Court. I can tell you that our constitutional rights are sacred to me. As a prosecutor, many people often think that we are on the offensive side of the battle, and they see the sword, but they don't often see the shield. And as a prosecutor, I can tell you, and as an aggressive prosecutor, that really means two things. One, you can separate somebody from this community for a long, long time. And the other, though, means that you can show up with a dismissal on day one when you feel like someone's constitutional rights have been infringed. And I have done that as a prosecutor. I've done that my entire career, and I will continue to do that as the next judge of the 359th.
All right, Mr. Gutzman, you're first on the next one, which is, what is one guiding Bible verse that represents God's call on your life to run for this position?
Psalm 27, the Lord is my salvation and my light. Whom shall I fear? And I carry that with me. I carry that with St. Michael's prayer with me every day that I go to the office. This is not a job for me. This is a calling. This run for judge for me is a calling. I have always been 100% committed to criminal justice. I'm the only candidate in the race that can say that. I've got family. My mom and dad are small business owners in Houston. They've had a courier and freight company in the city since 1979. My brother's a family lawyer. My middle brother's in real estate. But the greater Houston area has been so great to my family that I felt compelled to give back. And one of the best ways that I felt that I could give back is to protect my community and to go after those that would seek to do harm to people that are living their lives in God's way, working, engaging in commerce, growing families, having fun. Those are the people that I seek to protect. And, when I started my career in Harris County, as kind of a Houston guy, that was kind of the flagship office. That was where Brett Ligon started his career. And when I came up here, and I went to Montgomery High School, so coming to the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office was like coming back home. It was the best move of my life. My wife and I both decided that's where we wanted to live, to raise our family. That's where I wanted to work, because I knew that I was going to an office that had the foundation of conservative values and that would allow me to make decisions as a prosecutor to ensure public safety, to make sure that violent offenders were kept away from the rest of us, to make sure that repeat offenders got separated from this community when they needed to. Brett Ligon has always given me the tools as a prosecutor. My colleague continues to give me those tools. I am asking you to let me serve in a different capacity because I know how important it is to have good judges.
All right, Ms. Linzer, what is one guiding Bible verse that represents God's call on your life to run for this position?
That's such an easy question. It's Philippians 4:6. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Ask God for what you need and thank Him for what He's done. The reason that that's an easy question is that's the way I was raised. My parents raised us in the church. That was my mom's favorite Bible verse. My parents both passed 5 years ago during COVID. And when we had my mom's service, it was really important to myself, my sister, my brother, that we included that as part of the service because she lived that way. And the reason that I feel like it has affected me in my career is when you take a leap of faith and you decide after 10 years in the corporate world to change direction and go to law school, it feels like, is that the best thing to do? But I had to pray and say, if that's what you're calling me to do, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to have faith. And I did. And right out of law school, I was given the opportunity to work in the Attorney General's office in law enforcement defense. And it was so perfect because my brother was a law enforcement officer and then a DEA agent. And so it felt like God was letting me know that I had followed the right path. During my career, I've been able to work at the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office, which is the biggest district attorney's office in the state of Texas. I then came to the Special Prosecution Unit, where I handled civil commitment of sexually violent predator cases and was there recruited by Brett Ligon to the DA's office in Montgomery County. I say all that to say this. God put me on this path, and he put great people in my path. He gave me experiences that led me to where I am today, and it led me to run for this bench.
Ms. Lindsay, are you still up? First on the next question, and it's a kind of a combination of things that are related. How much of your campaign funding comes within your district? Who are your top donors, and what percentage of your funding comes from individual contributions that are like under 500 versus large PACs or large donors or PACs?
As many of you may know, today our financial reports were due, so I know some of this information. One of the things I can tell you is I don't have funding from a PAC. I don't have that. My funding comes from grassroots. It's pretty incredible when your friends and your family, people that you've met along the way, believe in you so much that they take their hard-earned money and they invest in your campaign. I have a large group of friends here tonight who have all done that. And it's touching to my heart. Judicial candidates can only accept $2,500 per person. So we don't have the ability to accept very large donations. My husband and I invested $15,000 of our own money into my campaign because we believe in this, and we believe that this is where I'm supposed to be. But the rest of the money that I have raised has come from individuals like all of you here tonight that met me and decided, I want to get behind this race. And so when it comes to my campaign management, you'll be able to go and look at that on the Texas Ethics Commission website, and you'll be able to see where the donations come from. But the majority of my donations are small, but they are mighty. Thanks.
Mr. Gutzman, same question. How much of your campaign funding comes from within the district? Who are your top donors, and what percentage of your funding comes from individual contributions under $500 as opposed to large donors or PACs?
Thank you for the question. I can tell you the only PAC money that I've raised has come from the Houston Police Officers Union, and I am proud to have their endorsement, and they wrote me a check for $500, and I was glad to receive it on behalf of the 5,300 members of that organization. I've had great cases with them. I've worked with the Houston Police for a long time, and I'm very proud of their support. Most of my funding has come from not only within Montgomery County, but the greater Houston area. And I can tell you what's interesting about that is that I have been very blessed in this campaign to have a lot of support. I had people that are in Montgomery County that I've known since high school that care about keeping this community safe. And I've had checks written all the way from $2,500 to $25,000. And I'm happy to receive every dollar to put that money to work to get the word out, to keep this community safe. But I'm also happy to have received money from business owners in Houston. And you might think that's odd why someone from Houston or Harris County might give money to a judicial candidate in Montgomery County, but let me tell you why. Many of the business owners that I've grown up with, many of the business owners that have cared about this race, don't want to see what happened in Harris County happen here. They want somebody in Montgomery County with conservative values. They want somebody with an excellent prosecutorial track record, and they want somebody that is committed to keeping this community safe, not just by words, but by action.
Mr. Gutzman, you're first on our final question, which is, do you have a spiritual gift? And if so, how will you use it if elected?
I have some pretty significant trial experience. I have tried offenders from everything from drug cases to forgeries to violent crimes to the worst child sex offenders that you can possibly imagine. I've also done internet crimes against children work, which is proactive, which is some of the best work that we do in this county to make sure that we're stopping those offenders before they have an opportunity to harm a child. And I can tell you that before I go to trial, before jury selection, every single time without fail, I recite the St. Michael's prayer. I'll continue to do that as a judge. I think that when the state has the evidence, that a judge is obligated to protect this community. I think that a judge should be faithful to the law and not necessarily law enforcement. I think that a judge is obligated to be fair. I think that a judge should rule with compassion, integrity, and respect in every decision that's made. And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a prerequisite to be a judge to have been a defense attorney before. As a matter of fact, one of our best judges in the building, Phil Grant, has never been a defense attorney. Kathleen Hamilton, the current judge of the 359th, has never been a defense attorney. Give me this opportunity to do for you as the judge of the 359th what I have done for you as a prosecutor my entire career. And that's to rule with compassion, integrity, and respect. And that's not just compassion for the criminal defendant. That's compassion for victims too.
Ms. Linzer, do you have a spiritual gift? And if so, how will you use it if elected?
I feel like I learned that I had a spiritual gift when I was a baby prosecutor in Fort Worth, Texas. We call them baby prosecutors when you're young. And I was tapped by one of the attorneys in the Crimes Against Children Division to help him prepare a case for trial. Now, this was back in 2003, so we did not have cell phone evidence. We had Polaroids. And we did not have videos of anything. It was what it was. We had the words of the children. But in this case, unfortunately, we also had photos. Every time I think about this case, those photos come into my head. And it's one of the worst things that I've ever had to see. So when you ask about a spiritual gift, I know that God blessed me with the ability to look at those things, but continue to fight on for that child, to not break down and be overcome with emotion so that I could represent that child. And you gotta understand, when you get older and you're a mom and you have to go home to your son when he wants to talk to you about his football game, and you've spent all day talking about or talking to a child who's been abused, you have to figure out a way to turn it off. I think God granted me a gift to be able to compartmentalize and to be able to do the hard work and then be able to continue to give back to my community, my family, my friends, and my faith. And I also think that he granted me with patience and the right temperament to be a judge of a court so that I can give everyone their day in court and always treat others the way that I would want to be treated.
All right, we will now have our closing statements, 2 minutes each side. Mr. Gutzman, you're first.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is vitally important in this race is to choose a candidate that is experienced. Experience does matter. But let me tell you what else matters: commitment, integrity, and trust. And you don't get the endorsement from the Houston Police Officers Union. You don't get the endorsement from the Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas. You don't get the endorsement from McCLEA and the Coalition of Police and Sheriffs unless you have commitment to the law. Both me and my opponent have worked for Brett Ligon. He's been our longest serving district attorney here in Montgomery County. And if you like the way that Brett Ligon has done criminal justice in this community for the last 17 years, then you are going to love me as a district court judge. It's not important that you have endorsements. It's important what those endorsements mean. And when you have endorsements from 10 police chiefs that are not political officials, that have their hand in the mud out there with their police officers protecting our rights and our freedoms and our safety every single day, and you have the consensus support of law enforcement, that means something. I am proud to have those endorsements. I am proud to be supported by law enforcement, but I am also proud to humbly tell you that this is a reluctant run for me for district court judge. I haven't always wanted to be a judge. I wanted to be a prosecutor. I wanted to defend my community. I wanted to protect the innocent. I wanted to safeguard and uphold our constitutional rights, and I have been committed to the law in doing that, and I want you to give me the opportunity to do that as a judge. When things get hard and things get tough, and we have to make hard decisions at the courthouse, your values matter. My values are your values. I practice what you preach. I humbly ask you for your vote and your support to be the next judge of the 359th District Court.
Ms. Linzer?
The most important endorsement that a candidate can receive is your vote. And that's why I'm here tonight. I would love to get your vote. I told you my experience earlier. I have had the opportunity to work as a prosecutor. It was one of my favorite jobs. I did it for 18 years. And during the time I was a prosecutor, I actually went and served as the first assistant district attorney in Grimes County, Texas. So what does that mean? It means that I was responsible for the administration of an office. I managed people. I did payroll. I did all the things that it takes to run like a small business. And when I was there, my boss became a judge. So I actually served as a district attorney. I'm the only candidate in this race that can say that I've not only been a prosecutor and worked my way up the ranks, but I've been a first assistant district attorney and I've served as a district attorney. I was also the chief of the 359th District Court. That's important. I know how this courtroom runs. And because I've been the chief prosecutor in the 359th District Court and a defense lawyer in the 359th District Court, I know both sides. I bring balance. I am not a reluctant candidate. I am a bold candidate. I want this job. I knew I wanted this job a long time ago. So when I left prosecution, I became a defense lawyer because I felt like that would make me more fair, more balanced. There are people that I respect immensely who are judges on the bench right now who have that experience. Judge Lisa Mychalk, Judge John Hafley, Judge Echo Hudson, Judge Patty McGinnis. They've all worked both as prosecutors and defense lawyers, and you know that they do a good job because you've voted them in year after year. Hope to earn your vote, Joanne Linzer for the 359th. Thank you.
All right, let's go. Let's thank both of our candidates one more time, and then we'll be taking a 10-minute break. So our next forum is for State Board of Education, District 6, and we have one candidate who has joined us here tonight. So this forum will be a little bit shorter than the last one. And our candidate for tonight is Tiffany Nelson, so welcome her up here.
I guess I'll just stand. There's really no reason
That'd be great.
to sit.
So we're going to just kind of, with one candidate, we're going to do a little bit of a different format here. So why don't you go ahead and make your opening statement, and then I'll ask you these questions and go from there.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. I'm Tiffany Nelson. I'm running for State Board of Education, District 6. I have spent the last 3+ years serving the 7th largest school district in the state of Texas. The Conroe ISD Board of Trustees, was the vice president. My husband and I share 6 children, and I think it was every parent's nightmare when COVID happened, because it was when parents really woke up to what their children were learning in schools. Prior to that, I was probably one of those annoying parents that sent emails and called and said, "Why are you teaching these things?" But it was really COVID that was the eye opener, and it was the things that our students and our children were learning was really concerning to me. And that was when you turned on the TV and you couldn't help but seeing what was happening at your local school board or nationally, with terrorists being at the school board in Virginia. It was time to wake up and do something about it. God called me into the battlefield of the local school board, and it was there that I fell in love with education. My background is in nonprofit consulting, and I've been serving our community for 2 or 3 decades now, and I really have a grasp on who our community is and what our community needs. And it's my honor and my privilege to serve this community. A little bit about how I grew up. I grew up with a single mother, went to 21 schools, was raised on free lunch and government housing. I know what it's like to struggle, and I know what it's like to succeed. I lived the American dream. I was given a chance because a teacher believed in me, and education was my way out. And I hope to give that to every Texan student that walks across that graduation stage, so that they can be ready for college, career in entrepreneurship or trade, or the military. Thank you.
Okay, I can just tell you we have a lot of questions that were submitted, so we'll try to go through those as quickly as possible. But obviously, feel free to take as long or as little time as you'd like. So we have a few questions about curriculum. One is, what changes, it's a general question, what changes do you hope to make regarding curriculum?
That's a great question, and one of the main reasons I'm here, Kurt. We're dealing with a lot of things in our curriculum and our TEKS, which is the standards that guides our curriculum, and our structural materials. We're dealing with a lot of woke ideology, a lot of DEI that's taking place in our materials that are getting into the hands of our students. Our students are spending 8 hours a day in classrooms. That's a long time. And do we really know what's taking place in our students and our children's classrooms? There have been assignments. We're teaching in sex ed, we're teaching that in order to be pregnant, you can be a pregnant person. There was a kindergarten assignment that I saw that was called the genderbread person. And it was a little cute coloring that said, what sex do you feel you should be today? These things are really concerning, and we're graduating our kids to grow up confused, and they have no idea who they are, what they are, and all of these things are plaguing our classrooms, and it's not making space for our students to learn the basics, and really it's improving educational outcomes. Texas is great at a lot of things. We have a booming economy in oil and gas and medical and aerospace, but education is subpar. We are right in the middle in education, and we need to do something about that. We need to improve educational outcomes. We need to improve our literacy scores, which is the lowest it's been in 2 decades. We need to give our students the opportunity that they need to succeed, removing all of the barriers of this woke ideology and getting back to the basics.
All right, in a somewhat related question, how would you address the need for citizens to have an understanding of and respect for the United States and Texas history, as well as practical civics?
It's a great question. So right now, the State Board of Education is working on the TEKS for social studies. So it's been really an interesting process to watch. I've been involved with their meetings for several years. I see some friends that I see there as well. And right now they're working on the TEKS, which is perfect timing. If you couldn't fix it any sooner, this is a great year to do it in the celebration of our 250th anniversary of our great nation. It was very controversial at the State Board of Education. They were setting the frameworks for the social studies TEKS, and it was a big hot topic because it's a 15-member board. Each board member serves about 2 million people. It's a very, very large district. And they were voting on the framework for the TEKS, and they were really deciding, do we want it to be heavy U.S. history and American history and not so heavy on world history and global history, or do we want a really healthy balance and heavy on a global world education? And it was a huge, hot topic, and it was very heated that it got to, but really in the end, we want to raise children in America first, American exceptionalism. We want our children to know our founding fathers and what this country was created on. And that's a biblical truth and biblical values. And these are the values that we want to instill on our children and in these classrooms, that they are walking out, having a love of country and a love of state. And that's something that's really important. And thankfully, on Wednesday, they lost the vote to our current representative at District 6, who is not running again, but they lost the vote to him. And it was very heavy on world and global history. But on Friday, thankfully, he changed his vote, and now it's going to be heavy on U.S. and Texas history.
Okay, we have two questions that I'm going to combine because they're somewhat related, and they're similar to the questions for the judges in the last forum. What is one guiding Bible verse that represents God's call on your life to run for this position? And then secondly, do you have a spiritual gift? And if so, how would you use it if elected?
Sure. I love Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things will be given to you. And I just really lean on that. There have been times when things get hard, and sometimes you need to stand on your own. For instance, it came to me in 2022 as a school board member. A gentleman brought to the school board the fact that the 5th grade biology book was teaching the Big Bang Theory as the origin of the universe. And as a pastor's wife and a master's in Christian ministry, I thought the world is not created in an explosion. And at the very least, we need to teach our children to think critically. Why aren't we teaching intelligent design to compare and contrast to the Big Bang Theory? Every person on that board, it's a 7-member dais, 2 of them abstained to the vote, and the 4 of them said no. And I stood on my own. But I have an audience of 1, and that verse is always guiding me in everything I do. And so I took that and I took it to the State Board of Education, and I said, you guys, this has been in the curriculum 20 years ago and in the textbooks, but somehow it got taken out. And so I fought, and I kept coming to them, and about a year later, it was changed and added to all Texas textbooks, not just for the district of Conroe ISD, but all 1,200 districts in the state of Texas. Now has intelligent design to compare and contrast to the Big Bang Theory. And spiritual gift, thank you. I've always been called an encourager, and I like that. I will take that, and I'm very happy to be called an encourager. I think it's important that we encourage each other and encourage each other to be the best that they can be, and that also means students, getting our students to be the very best they can be, walking across that stage, getting their diploma, and giving into the economy of Texas, and making Texas and the United States the wonderful and amazing country that it is.
Okay, the next question says, RPT platform has banned taxpayer-funded lobbyists. How can you, the State Board of Education, assist in stopping the influence they enjoy with curriculum and book adoption? Often, publisher lobbyists fill the room, but at the expense of the parent and taxpayer.
Yep, it's a great question. Well, one of the things you can do is something that we already did at Conroe ISD, and that's say no to taxpayer-funded lobbyist groups like TASB. We removed TASB from Conroe ISD and brought in a new organization, and that was a really big deal for us, and it gave us the opportunity to rewrite over 50 to 60 different policies to align with the conservative values of the community that voted me in. And we were able to make changes like we're able to adopt a policy that is removing any gender ideology, gender fluidity to align with President Trump's executive order. We were able to get a Title IX policy, and I had been fighting for a Title IX policy back with the Biden rewrite with the gender orientation. And with the new organization, we were able to get that policy in. We wrote a book policy removing sexually explicit materials from our schools and libraries, our classrooms and libraries, and making it age appropriate. The power and control is with the lobbyists, and when you release those chains, you can have the freedom to pick and select any curriculum and any textbooks that you feel are aligned. And that's the exciting part about being on the State Board of Education, is that you have the opportunity to start with a clean slate and pick the curriculum that best aligns with you, but best aligns with District 6, which is Montgomery County and Harris County, and what you wanted me to vote in for you.
All right. Next question is, should homosexuality be included or excluded from the Republican Party platform?
Well, it should, and it is. It should, it should definitely be on the platform to make that it is an abnormal lifestyle, and that they should not have the way that it's written. Should stay the way that it is. One of the things that's important about that is my opponent doesn't believe that it belongs on the platform. That is concerning when it comes to curriculum. Like I said, there are things in our curriculum where there are studies where kids have two parents and they're two moms or two dads. This is concerning in our curriculum. I don't think any of that stuff needs to be in our classrooms. Really, our students need to just focus on the basics so that they can learn English, history, science, math. That's it. They don't need to know about sexual orientation or who you go home with, what takes place in your bedroom. That's for your parents to tell you about, and when they're ready and on their time.
One of the questions asks, what will you do not only to protect our kids, but allow for a safe learning environment?
Well, there are 5 main things that the State Board of Education does, and that is approving the TEKS, was the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. They also set the graduation requirements and the instructional learning materials, and they also approve charter schools and manage the Permanent School Fund. The Permanent School Fund is the largest education endowment fund and the oldest. It contains $60 billion in the account, and it is the State Board of Education's job to oversee and manage that account, making sure that they are aligned and not investing in investments that are against who Texas is, like BlackRock, and they removed all of those things. So it's being a watchman over that account. And then the others are just making sure that the curriculum, the guidelines, the graduation requirements, the instructional materials are all aligned with our community values. And we've removed all of this stuff, all of the things that are plaguing our classrooms and giving our children confusion, and again, improving educational outcomes and having students walk across that stage ready with opportunity.
All right, I'm going to combine a couple of questions here. How would you ensure that adopted instructional materials are accurate, age appropriate, free from bias, while at the same time meeting high academic standards? And what would you do to incorporate Judeo-Christian values into the curriculum?
Well, with the passing of HB 1605, there's a new bill that passed 2 legislative sessions ago, and that is bringing in high-quality instructional materials for our students at the State Board of Education level. What that means is that it goes through a process called the IMRA process, and you can have teachers and community members sign up to be a member of the IMRA process or suitability reviewers. And it's a stipend. There's a job that you can get with TEA and look over the material. Then that goes through that process. There's a huge rubric that shows how aligned it is with the TEKS. 100%, the high quality instructional materials are 100% aligned with the TEKS. And it goes through a very rigorous process. And then it is flagged for concerns and flagged for errors. And then eventually, when it's ready to pass, and this can be years long in the process, when it's ready to pass, it comes to the State Board of Education. And then that comes for review and to vote on on and passing it. So again, I would reach out to resources and trusted resources that I have and make sure that this is what we need for our students. I've done the work in the past. I'm willing to get in and get my hands dirty and do the work and show up, and I have a track record to prove it.
All right. We have a closing statement coming up, but just briefly, because I think this question needs to be addressed. What makes you more qualified than your opponent? And then go into your closing
Than
statement.
my opponent? Well, I think that you have two very different opponents. I have education experience. I've served as an elected official in a public school board. So I have education experience, policy experience. We've rewritten 50 or 60 policies in our school district. I have curriculum experience. I've worked on the science curriculum, and I've successfully passed work over at the State Board of Education, getting intelligent design added to Texas textbooks. I also worked with the State Board of Education on the curriculum that is going to help improve literacy scores, and we passed that in Conroe ISD as well. I also have been spending plenty of time up at the Capitol to work on legislation and work with legislators, and having key relationships with legislators is a really big deal because you're able to get the work done for education. On the pub ed committees as well, and so able to get those done. That's just one of the things I think that makes me qualified, but also that I have a proven track record. And that's something that I don't think my opponent can say as well. You can see my votes. You can see what I voted on. You can see where I've stood strong for biblical values when no one else did. And you can see the work that I've done and continue to do. And my opponent doesn't have a track record other than speaking at the state convention, trying to get abortion taken off of the platform, and removing the LGBTQ statement. So I think you have two very different people. One's very conservative and one is more on the moderate. Did you have a second part of that question that I missed?
Just to go ahead and give us
go into
your
my closing statement. Well, I really want to thank you all so much for being here and for supporting me just along my journey in education. It has been a wonderful ride, and this is where the work gets done. These are the grassroots people this is where the work gets done. You tell me what you want, and I get it done. I'm just thankful for the time that you all are here tonight to take the ability to listen to candidates and hear what it is that they're running on, and just appreciate you all so much. God bless you.
All righty. So we're going to take another break, and then we will proceed to the Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3. Again, so make your way back in, and we will start our final forum of the night, which is Justice of the Peace, Precinct number 3. And our candidates are Brittany Hale and J. Max Sanders. So welcome them to the stage, please. Okay, so we'll start with our opening statements. You have 2 minutes each, and Ms. Hale, you'll go first.
Thank you. Hi there, good evening. I am Brittany Gable Hale, and I'm running to be your next Justice of the Peace for Precinct 3. Thank you all for being here, and I know it's getting late, but I appreciate your presence and your willingness to be informed and hear me speak. To start, I am a lifelong resident and proud to be a resident of Montgomery County. I am a devoted wife and mother and passionate advocate for fairness, integrity, upholding the law, and of course, our community. So, Justice Court is not just the people's court, it is community court. For almost a decade, I dedicated my heart and my life to shaping young minds as a classroom teacher, and now I understand the importance of strong foundations and people, procedures, whether it's in a classroom or a courtroom. The last few years, I have chosen to be a stay-at-home mom, and now this last year, I have been focusing on this campaign, and I have and will continue to learn as much as I can and become knowledgeable to serve Precinct 3 from day one. I am rooted in faith, focused on family, and committed to community. With your vote and God's plan, I look forward to bringing innovative ideas such as community collaborations with nonprofits for resources and truancy advocacy. I plan to improve the efficiency of the courtroom and office by streamlining processes, especially those that can be managed electronically, and ensuring accountability and accessibility through possible changes in hours of operations, flexible dockets, caseload management, and strongly adhering to timelines, just to name a few. I live by the belief that the will of God will not take you where the grace of God will not protect you. It is this faith combined with a sincere desire to serve that drives me to continually step forward. I'm asking for everyone here and other voters to put your own faith and trust in me, Brittany Gable Hale, to be your next Precinct 3 Justice of the Peace. You have my word that I will work hard and do a great job.
All right, Judge Sanders, 2 minutes.
Thank you for being here. Again, like she said, you've got a lot of other things you could be doing on a Thursday night. Thank you, Brittany, for being here. My name is J. Mac Sanders. You can call me J. Mac. I'm your current Justice of the Peace for Precinct 3. A little bit of background about me on the 2 minutes for those that don't know and may not go do more research. I'm an Arkansas Razorback by blood, a Baylor Bear by education, and I'm a passionate advocate for justice, and sometimes my family is called the Justice Police. You want to do the right thing all the time, and you don't want to cut corners when you do it. The court that we have every day that shows up all the time, we've got wonderful clerks that are amazing at what they do. We have a tremendous amount of volume, and experience matters. There's not going to be on-the-job training. It's going to be from day one, get-go. When I started, on December the 20th, the previous judge, Judge Beasley, let his staff know that he was going to be stepping down. And that was a clock for anybody that was interested to say, hey, I'm interested. I'd like to go ahead and put my name forth. I went on January the 7th and put my name forth at the Commissioner's Court and said, hey, my name's J. Mac Sanders. I'm a resident of Precinct 3. As you guys consider the appointment commissioners and county judge, I would appreciate your consideration for myself. That was on January the 7th. At 11:50, nobody else stood up that day except me. Nobody else was there. There were 3 other people in the room that I've come to find out were there that were going to get up and say something. And either after I didn't, or they didn't, or decided not to before I did. Nevertheless, that was an opportunity for somebody to get involved in. It was publicly available to everybody. I got involved, I stood up, I put my name out there, and I got the unanimous support of all the commissioners and the county judge. That was at 11:55 when they had that vote. At 12:10, I was sworn in as the next JP. By 12:50, I was actually at the courthouse on January the 7th. The day before, on January the 6th, I was still making lead calls for my small business, trying to make sure, because I didn't know if I was going to get it. I knew I was going to put my name for it, but I didn't know if I was going to get it. That's what it's like. It's not stopping and never quitting. I showed up then, I continue to show up now, and it matters. So I'm running for re-election, not re-election, but election again, but to keep my seat. Thank you so much.
All right, Judge Sanders, this first question is for you. And I'm combining a couple of questions because they touch on the same topic. Candidates often express what they can do for the community, but no one ever mentions the court staff, who are the real people who make the court run. How do you plan on building rapport with staff and ensuring that they are seen and their concerns are addressed? And what will you do for the public and your staff to have the best court and the most positive impact in and out of the community?
Hey, thanks. Whoever submitted that question, that's a great question. Anybody that runs an organization, whether it's big or small, I've done it in small businesses, and I'm doing it now as the JP. Constable Gable has plenty of deputies, constables that work for him. Morale is very important, as well as education and training, empowerment. You want to be able to give your employees and your staff, and in my case, my clerks, hey, at the end of the day, I empower you. Let's work at this. Let's get better at this. Bring your ideas forward. We want to learn about them, and let's get trained up. We've got new laws that have been implemented after this legislative session in March that closed out with the extra special sessions that the governor called, and as a result, there's some changes that are coming through. We've had subject matter experts come in and give training to our clerks to help prepare them for what's going to be coming about. In order to build morale, they've got to see your work ethic. They've got to understand that you're trying as hard as they are, but they are the front-facing, forward-facing effort of this job. And you can't do the job without them. We had 34,000 cases last year. We disposed of 600 more civil cases this year and 2,300 more criminal cases this year. You don't do that without staff working exceptionally hard all the time. The clerks are amazing at what they do. We are completely fully clerked up now. And so we've got 5 new clerks that we've hired this year because we had 5 vacancies on the day I started. At the end of the day, being able to bring more people in that are qualified, capable, and able, and to empower them to make decisions and to be able to manage, double check, make sure people are doing a good job, but also give them the latitude to have the belief in themselves that they're really doing a good job. I tend to be the forward-facing outside part of it, and I tell people, I said, my name's on the bottom of the page, and it's not because I want it there. It's because if somebody's going to take a shot or come after you, I want them coming after me and not my clerks. So I appreciate that. I'm not always the best at sharing it, but at the end of the day, I love them. They're amazing at what they do, and I couldn't be as successful as a court as we have been without them.
All right, Ms. Hale, the question is, candidates often express what they can do for the community, but no one ever mentions the court staff, who are the real people who make the court run. How do you plan on building rapport with staff and ensuring they are seen and their concerns are addressed? And what will you do for the public and your staff to have the best court and the most positive impact in and out of the community?
Sure. The first thing is to build relationships and strong relationships. To do that, it's getting to know your staff. It's getting to know who works for you, because as a JP, your job cannot get done without them. I think this can be done through meetings and collaboration. I wouldn't ask of my staff to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. I think constantly talking with them on a personal level, again, getting to know them. A lot of times, unless people have respect for you and they know that you will work for them, they won't want to give you their all. So I think that's the most important thing. And so, thank you.
We have a lot of questions for the Justice of Peace Precinct 3 tonight. So I'm doing my best to kind of combine some, and there's 2 questions that regard the topic of partiality or impartiality. One is a general and one specific. So the general one was, how will you be fair and impartial? And specifically, if an arrest is made by a Precinct 3 constable, how can you guarantee a fair hearing, no conflict of interest?
Sure. So I'll first address the second part of that. First and foremost, if there was any law that prohibits siblings from holding simultaneous elected offices, I would not be standing here today. I would not have thrown my hat into being in the running for JP. And so I think right there, that's first. If any conflict of interest were to arise, such as what you said, or between the constable's office and the JP courtroom, I would, without hesitation, recuse myself from any particular cases. My brother has earned the trust of our county and has worked tirelessly to prove himself and do a great job. And he served for 14 years, 4 terms of service to Precinct 3. And, I can understand the concern in questioning my integrity because I have never held an elected position. But by throwing this out there, it is questioning the integrity of the constable's office as well. I will, of course, look over everything that comes through my courtroom and absolutely do my due diligence as AJP, and making sure that procedures and the law are followed. But I will also trust that law enforcement is upholding their side of their job and the law that they were sworn in.
All right, Judge Sanders, same question. How will you be fair and impartial? And specifically, if an arrest is made by a Precinct 3 constable, how will you guarantee a fair hearing, no conflict of interest?
If the arrest is made by a Precinct 3 constable or a DPS agent or a sheriff's deputy, it doesn't matter to me. There's not going to be any perceived conflict of interest by anyone in the courtroom. So that's step one. I think the conflict of interest can extend beyond any relationship you have. And she's correct. There's no stipulation, no law out there that says they can't run. I don't think they ever envisioned it happening, so I don't think they felt they needed to. That might have been something that they would have had they thought of that when they created the Constitution, but nevertheless, it hasn't been added since. But at the end of the day, conflicts of interest can arise, and it's not going to be a problem if that ever comes. We have deputies in our court all the time, and it's there as well as on the civil side for process service. So there's not going to be any conflict.
All right, next question. What does family mean to you, and how will it affect your leading from the bench?
Me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Judge Sanders, you're first on the next question. Sorry.
So can you repeat the question?
The question is, what does family mean to you, and how will it affect your leading from the bench?
Family means probably as much to me as it does the other people in this room. That's not a unique question to everybody. We all have family trees. We all have family trees that sometimes we go out too far and the limb breaks. The branches are soft and tender. Sometimes they're petrified. At the end of the day, family's family. You love them. By the grace of God, I'm a child of God, and I'm in His family, and I get a tremendous amount of grace from Him. So family drives a lot of things, but it's a very hard thing to do sometimes when you're in court, when there's an eviction docket or a debt claim docket, and you know that at the end of the day, somebody's going to potentially be out of their home, or they're going to have a judgment against them, and they've got their family in court. And it's very difficult emotionally sometimes. You have to do the right thing, and the law's out there, and the statements and the facts are present. But at the end of the day, you have empathy for them, and you understand exactly, hey, life happened. And that's what I want to ask people. I oftentimes ask them that in court. It's like, hey, tell me what's going on. And they'll be shaking. They'll start crying. And I'll just say, hey, did life happen? And they say, yes, life happened. And it kind of breaks down that barrier of, hey, don't let whatever just happened define you. This is the beginning of the next chapter. How you respond to it is going to make all the difference in the world. And you've got the capacity to do this, get past it, and move on, whatever it is. So family's a tremendously driving factor. I'm incredibly blessed. I've got 5 kids, 15, 13, 11, and identical twin 7-year-olds. My wife, Kristen Lee, is the one who is the glue that keeps it all together and manages amazing things while she also runs a small business. So family is a driver for most everybody in this room. How it helps me, it helps me behind the bench because I know I can start to see, hey, this is for the future of our community, and this is what this looks like. And so those are all driving factors to get up and come to work. I was going to do it anyway, but it's helpful for family. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hale, what does family mean to you, and how will it affect your leading from the bench?
My family means a lot. It's my everything. And I think there's 2 parts that it will affect how I lead from the bench. Because I know that JP Court sees everyday ordinary people. They see families, and a lot of things that happen in JP Court affect families. As a classroom teacher, I saw a lot of this. I saw a lot of children that came from all walks of life. A lot of things that, people don't realize, have no idea what goes on. And I think that you know, my family being my everything, they have their support. They have given me my values and my beliefs and just my strong, grounded sense of self. So, thank you.
All right. Ms. Hale, we're going to start with you, and it's again a couple of questions that I'm going to combine because they're similar topic. What is one Bible verse that represents God's call on your life to run for this position? And do you have a spiritual gift? And if so, how will you use it if elected?
So, my main verse, I believe, is Psalms 46:10, and it is, "Be still and know that I am God." I think that through this campaign, I've had to do that. I have had to ask Him or just listen and pray about this entire road, this campaign, and even being up here speaking tonight. The other thing is, and I said in my opening statement, that I believe, and this isn't a verse straight from the Bible, but it's the will of God will not take you where the grace of God will not protect you. And I so very much believe that. I wouldn't be here if I was not supposed to.
All right, Judge Sanders, again, combining two questions here. What is one Bible verse that represents God's call on your life to run for this position? And do you have a spiritual gift? And if so, how would you use it?
So there's not one verse. Kind of limiting 66 books to one verse on a life verse is kind of it's a complicated thing. I've got several. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future and purpose. Is one that's given me a tremendous amount of faith and hope in different times throughout the course of my life, through the ups and the downs, as you go through your 20s, 30s, and 40s, and you start to appreciate the magnitude and scope of everything. James 1:2-4, consider it pure joy, my brethren, the trials and tribulations that you face, for the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance is earned not because you succeeded, it's only earned because you failed. It's when you fail tremendously that you realize, okay, without perseverance and hope and a belief, that you're not going to make it and you're not going to keep going. Just like Brittany said, I don't think there's an atheist in politics, period. I don't know anybody that's in politics that doesn't pray before they go up on a debate stage or go up in a forum or get out there into the public speaking out realm or just start knocking on doors. Like, you can't do that without any concept of a faith and think this is going to work out perfectly. And even if it does, we're not guaranteed that it's going to. So the verses are that. What was the first part of the question?
Well, the first question was about the verse, and then secondly, do you have a spiritual gift? And if so,
Spiritual gift, yeah. So there are many promises, and a hymn comes to mind, standing on the promises of God. What's out there? One of the big promises God gives is if you pray for wisdom, He'll give it to you. Discernment it's a hard thing to tell people you think you have it because you sound arrogant or overly confident, and I can appreciate that. But I've been praying almost daily for wisdom since I was 27. And there was a couple of times in life where I believe He's given it. I think if you can look at my appeal rate, that's going to be part of the reason. I think I make fair judgments, and I think wisdom and discernment are part of that. Thank you.
All right, so Judge Sanders, you're up first on the next one. And there were three questions that specifically asked about qualifications that I was going to group together. One is, have you been to JP courts? Another is, what makes you more qualified than your opponent? And lastly, do you feel it is important to have law enforcement experience as part of your qualifications?
Qualifications is what this question is about. Law enforcement experience in order to be able to do this job, I would say no. I think it's helpful, just like any other experience is going to be helpful in how you administer your job and lead from that position. But as a qualification requirement, the Constitution hasn't put one in there. Like I said, be helpful but not required, just like it isn't to be an attorney either. So that's one of them. But at the end of the day, why do I think I'm more qualified than my opponent? Judicial experience is one of them. Like I said, this past year, we had approximately 1,000 more civil cases filed in the year 2025 than we did the year before. We had approximately 3,500 additional cases filed in criminal court than we did the year before. We were able to close 2,300 more and dispose of 2,300 more criminal cases and 600 more civil cases this year. Without the clerks, we could not have done that. Without being able to move the court efficiently with a docket and going through and understanding the law, not having to learn it to slow the dockets down to be able to move forward. I went from January the 7th in the courthouse at 11:55 with the vote, 12:10 at swearing in, to January the 7th at 12:45 being at the courthouse. My first day on the bench was January 21st. That's 2 weeks. I didn't know I was going to have the job. To be able to go from 2 weeks of being able to go look and sit in other courts, in addition to being able to dispose of the cases that we have, my appeal, I've got less than, if you go to the Office of Court Administration and look up appeal statistics, there's going to be approximately 150 or less appeals out of 34,000 cases that were completed this past year. So that tells you, A, we're doing things correctly, or people believe that what they got was fair. So thank you.
Ms. Hale, the questions again are, what makes you qualified? Have you been to JP courts? Do you feel it's important to have law enforcement experience? And what makes you more qualified than your opponent?
Sure. So, as far as my opponent goes, I will be in the same situation that he is in. We both have the same judicial law background. We are both non-attorneys. We will both go through the required training. Yes, he has already done that, but I will do the same thing the second that I am sworn in. I think that learning, there is a big learning curve, and I promise to continually learn. I'm a quick learner. I'm a lifelong learner, and I think, as you know, JP Court is meant to have non-attorneys, and I will continue to learn everything that I can. I will go to the required training that is required by the state, and I will be ready to and prepared to serve from day one. Was there any other part of that question?
I think you covered the topics. So, okay. Next question, and this is, we'll start with Ms. Hale. What is your stance on same-sex marriage, and will you perform same-sex marriages?
So, my stance is I was not raised that way, and I don't believe in it. However, that it, so here's my answer. I plan to, right now, focus on the courtroom, and the needs of the courtroom, and I will think about that. If I do end up officiating weddings, I will officiate all. I will not officiate some and not. If I choose not to officiate weddings, it will be because I will not officiate any.
All right, Judge Sanders, what is your stance on same-sex marriage, and will you perform same-sex marriage ceremony?
I will not perform same-sex marriage ceremonies. I didn't do any weddings my first year. I wanted to get to know the administration of the court. That is not a court function. I take that back. I did my first wedding on December the 30th, I think. I will not do same-sex marriages. I do perform marriages. And first off, it's a biblical concept. It's a basic understanding. God made them male and he made them female. And the male will leave and be together with his wife, and then leave and cleave and be one. I believe in that. I believe that's the way that God made it. and I'm not going to perform same-sex marriages. And part of the reason I didn't do that also in the beginning of the first year was because there was a capacity to be sanctioned by the Texas Judicial Branch as well as the State Bar of Texas in the event that you did do a description or distinction between same-sex marriage and heterosexual marriage. And so there was a ruling that came out with the Supreme Court that says they were no longer going to sanction that. So that was one of those things that I've been struggling with in trying to reconcile that capacity. And the Supreme Court kind of opened that door, but for not to be sanctioned. Not that you have to perform them, but that you're potentially not going to be sanctioned in the event that you do not do that. Another thing is the Defense of Marriage Act is something most of you probably don't know what it is or where it came from or how long ago it was passed. But that's something that I worked on as the member of the Family Values Action Team when I worked in the U.S. Senate for Senator Tim Hutchinson from Arkansas. Part of his legislative staff was we would have meetings with pro-family, pro-life, and family value-oriented Judeo-Christian organizations. And the Defense of Marriage Act was something the Republican Party and President Bush was pushing through that ultimately did get passed by Congress. And so that's something I've been working on since my early 20s, something I've believed for a long time. Thank you.
All right, Justice of the Peace, Judge Sanders. And by the way, I'm a justice too, but you can call me judge, justice, whatever. All right, so the question is, JP3 is one of the top 7 busiest courts in the state of Texas. Its office hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., open during lunch. Would you ever consider changing the office hours to better accommodate the public? If so, what would those hours be, and how would it affect the staff?
Other than it being open 8 to 5, at Fridays 8 to 4, extending hours open to the public, I've considered having them from 7 to 5 and rotating staff, but it's not something that's feasible really from being able to have a work-life balance for the clerks and the staff. That's not something that's reasonable. If kids have got to get on the bus for school or you've got to get the family ready before the day works, having staff come in for staffing at 7 and leaving at 5 is not, or staying later, isn't always the case. So we're open right now 44 hours, 8 to 5, and then during lunch during each one of those days as well. So I think the public has a tremendous amount of access by the fact that they can e-file 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And over any given weekend, we're going to have 200 to 500 new cases filed, and they don't have to come to court to do that. They can do that online through the e-file system. So the public having access to court is already there, and there's many things that they can find information to without calling during office hours to be able to accomplish the goals that they want to do. Do they do that? No. Do I often go around if I'm in a store and ask the person, hey, can you tell me what aisle such and such is on? Or I could walk up and down each aisle. So I appreciate how that operates. But another thing we would need potentially, not potentially, but just based on court volume, is additional clerks. Like I said, we have 4,500 more cases filed this year than we did last year, and we have 17 clerks. That's the volume, it's a third of a volume of additional cases than in some of the courts we have in Montgomery County. So a need for additional clerks is something that's I'm going to push for pretty quickly as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hale, JP3 is one of the 7 busiest courts in the state of Texas. Its office hours are 8 a.m., 5 p.m., open during lunch. Would you ever consider changing the office hours to better accommodate the public? And if so, what would they be, and how would that affect the staff?
Sure. I don't know so much about office hours. I do feel like as far as certain dockets and having flexible docket times is important, to have evening dockets, things that families, parents, children that are already missing school for truancy don't have to miss school, they can attend. I think right there that's important. Will that affect staff? Sure. But that one helps with efficiency, and it ultimately makes the court and the JP office more accessible to the people. And again, it is the people's court, so.
All right. Next question, beginning with Ms. Hale. What vision or visions do you have for the Justice Court number 3 if elected?
Sure, I have quite a few. My first is to implement meaningful programs for juveniles. I think that's near and dear to my heart already as a teacher, especially those struggling with truancy, to help redirect young people before small mistakes turn into lifelong consequences. I think truancy advocacy and juvenile advocacy is very important. So I'll do this, and I plan to do this through some different ideas, but one being to collaborate with community nonprofits and organizations such as Child Advocates of Montgomery County. They are currently not being utilized in JP Court. Working with the school district to try to come up with programs that, how can JPs help in this situation? How can we be proactive in this? So I think the next thing is evictions and providing resources, having relationships again with local nonprofits to come up with some sort of community wall or information wall that provides resources to families that might be without a home or needing food on the table. I think those kind of things are important that is not already in place. Again, improve efficiency, clear the backlog of cases, and make the court operate more efficiently. This will be done with caseload management, maintain efficient docket schedules, flexible docket times, adhere strongly to timelines. That's very important, and a lot of cases have to be heard within a certain timeline. And again, streamline processes. I think utilizing technology is a big thing. There's not a big paper trail anymore, but I know right now that there's a lot that's not being handled electronically as far as transfers between JP Court and County Court. So I'll stop there.
All right, Judge Sanders, what vision or visions do you have for the Justice Court?
Visions, not clairvoyant. We'll start there. At the end of the day, the vision is to continue what we're doing. Work harder today than you did the day before, the best you know how. Try and be better at your job tomorrow than you were today. That's something we all want to do. It's not the easiest thing to do. Do we have bad days? Of course we do. You have days where you're like, Dadgum, the alarm went off and you're moving a little bit slower. Of course you do. That makes you people. That makes you normal. That makes you still have to go to work. That's also why we have vacation days and time off. And sometimes we've closed the court. My clerks work so incredibly hard that we actually close the court for extra days during Christmas because I can't give them a bonus. This isn't a corporate business. So that's a way to help reward in an area where I don't have the capacity to do that. For those that are fact checkers that are out there, please fact check everything she just said about what is or is not happening between paper transfers, paper trails. I don't know if she wants a paper trail or if she wants it to all go digital. I can't tell based on the answer. My staff can tell you the amount of paper that we now print and the amount of paper that we do have on a trail and the things that we've created from a security standpoint. We have had a checklist of anybody that comes into our court that's not coming in and due to a case or to sit into an open courtroom, which has to be open during the docket. The doors are open. Anybody can come in at any time. If they're coming in, we have a paper record of it. Every single person that's come in, we implemented that, I think, in June. So none of that's, I'm not exactly sure specifically what they're referencing on a paper trail between us and the county court, specifically which county court it would be. I'm unaware of this if it's been happening. So at the end of the day, visions for the court, let's be better today than we were yesterday, the best way we know how, taking into consideration that some days are going to be harder. We're just going to have more work. It just kind of is what it is. We're going to catch up the best we know how, but we can't do it without more staff, more clerks.
All right, Judge Sanders, next question. Explain the importance of the voir dire process and what does jury integrity mean to you?
Jury integrity and voir dire. Voir dire is the process at which jurors are chosen where plaintiffs and defendants and/or the state as the prosecutor and/or defense or defense counsel has an opportunity to question witnesses or potential jurors before they are selected as jurors. Jury integrity is something that is immensely something that I'm always worried about, because the way the Code of Criminal Procedure is written is, in the event that in the voir dire process where either the plaintiff or defendant, or in civil where it's a complainant and a respondent, is not necessarily, they don't have any questions. Many times it's pro se. And so they say, I don't care, it doesn't matter. My first jury trial, the plaintiff came in, I said, we're going through voir dire, this is where your chance, all the jurors in the room. And I said, okay, here's your chance to ask questions to potential jurors to disqualify or not. And they said, I don't have any questions, Judge. I said, okay, fantastic. Went to the defendant. Defendant's like, I don't have any questions, Judge, you can pick the jury. It doesn't work like that. There's a process in which that works. They're allowed to ask questions. As well, as far as self-represented litigants, SRL is a very important term that is out there. Our website is full of information on how plaintiffs and defendants can go determine what their options are without my clerks being put in a position of giving legal advice versus legal information. They are asked that delicate balance at their desks and on the phone every single day. Our website is very comprehensive as far as information, probably to the point where people kind of give up looking for it because they don't necessarily know what they're looking for. But self-represented litigants is something that there is information on what to do and what your options are, whether it's prior to showing up to trial, at trial, and or after trial, whether or not you got a judgment in favor of you or not in favor of you. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hale, same question. Explain the importance of the voir dire process with the jury, and what does jury integrity mean to you?
Sure. So the process when you are picking juries, when you don't pick them, you take the first 6 or 12 that come through, and it goes to both parties. They ask certain questions if they have them, but ultimately they are not handpicked by the JP. And so there is a proper guideline, proper procedures in selecting the jury. As far as jury integrity, it's very important. They're up there for somebody else, and ultimately ruling or making decisions on behalf of someone else. So.
All right, next question. Ms. Hale, if you are the next Justice of the Peace, how would you prepare to ensure that you are prepared to make rulings on cases on January 1st, 2027?
Absolutely. So I have already started, but all JPs go through the same required training through the state, but I will be reading bench books. I will be learning. I'm a quick learner. I love to learn. I will be sitting down. I have observed other JP courts throughout the county. I have sat down with our district attorney. I have sat down with other judges and JPs, asked questions, and I will continue to do so and even more. I will continue to, my brother is an invaluable resource as far as civil procedures go. He used to, in fact, teach a lot of the required training for elected officials. And so I think right there is wonderful. I will, as every JP does, again, go through all the required training, and I will always operate within my authority and follow all rules in the law. I will take an oath to administer justice impartially and with fairness, defend the constitutions, and uphold the law. And again, we'll know where my authority comes from. When elected, March 3rd, I will begin March 4th, doing everything that I can to prepare and become knowledgeable, and very knowledgeable, to serve Precinct 3 from day one.
All right, Judge Sanders, could I ask you the same question? Or we can draw from the hat over here, since you already are on the court. But think we're running out of time anyway, so I will just go ahead and pose that same question. If you continue to be the Justice of the Peace, how will you be prepared to continue to make rulings from the bench on January 1?
Great question. So actually, nobody's going to be doing anything on January 1st because it's a federal holiday and the courthouse is closed. Secondly, on March the 4th, you're not guaranteed election. We actually have an opponent, either one of us, in the general election in November. So we'll have to still campaign. Anybody could lose that race. So it's unlikely, but that's the way the votes work, and the people have that right. So it's I had all judges that get elected in November have judge school before they actually are sworn in. The first stage of judge school is prior to actually taking office, and interestingly enough, I had ended up sitting behind the bench and having trial before I had even been to the second stage of judge school, much less the first stage of judge school. So it's reading the desk books is important, paying attention is important, but knowing the vocabulary is critical. This wasn't a new concept for me. I knew what a holdover was in eviction law. I knew what a motion in limine or special exceptions were. All of these things matter. Ultimately, you're going to make a decision on whether or not the qualifications that I've presented tonight are worth it to you or not. But I'm going to continue to hit the ground running, and I'm not going to do the mandatory required. I'm going to do more than the mandatory required. So judges required for 80 hours their first year. Part of that comes before you ever take office, the first 25 hours. I'd get all of it in during my first year after that, and I've taken an additional approximately 30 hours on top of that. So education is important. Staying on top of things and getting in front of them as much as you can and asking questions to other judges is very important. And if you're using only Montgomery County to be able to get your experience for a fast-paced, high-volume court, they are there, but it's not the same. It's simply not the same. In December, we had 10,500 phone calls into the office. 17 clerks, 10,500 phone calls into the office. That's almost impossible to do. People are going to be on hold, and therefore reviews are not going to be good because they're from people from not here. Thank you.
All righty. We're going to move into our closing statement now. So we will begin with Ms. Hale. You have 2 minutes.
Sure. Just real quick before I start my closing statement, I just want to make a couple remarks and just touch on, as far as appointment went a year ago, it was all of a sudden the appointment came to be. There was no other opening at that time because, trust me, I would have been there and I would have put my hat to be appointed at that time. As far as integrity, which I very much have, and transparency and doing the right thing, I can assure you that I will not sit and let roughly 4,000 registration citations within a couple months come through my courtroom and hold people accountable while my registration is not up to date on any of my cars. But anyways, I'm Brittany Gable Hale. I am running to be your better Justice of the Peace for Precinct 3. Just to reiterate, and I promise to continually serve the people of my court with dignity, grace, and compassion. Because I realize that Justice Court affects families and everyday, ordinary people that may be in harder seasons of life, I will bring a unique perspective to this position, one that sets me apart and makes me the best candidate for the job. I will always act in the people's best interests and operate within my authority, following the proper rules and law. Now, I so graciously ask to have your support and would be honored to have your vote. If you're on the fence for any reason, I ask you to get to know me better. Come talk with me, because I would love, if I don't already have it, I would love to earn your vote. I will be number 2 on the voting ballot, so please make sure you are clicking my name, Brittany Gable Hale, for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3. Thank you. Have a great night.
All right, Judge Sanders, 2 minutes.
True statement. My car was not registered. I didn't re-register my car correctly. I was 4 months late or 5 months late doing it. And I was like, holy cow. I've had constables and sheriffs come in the courtroom and walk by my car every day. Somebody should have written me a ticket. Why didn't they? Literally, every day they walk right by it. I didn't know it. I figured out, I'm like, oh, crap. I need to go ahead and get my car registered. So that's what I did. Guilty there, not cited. So that's where I got off with the warning because they didn't do anything. They could have paid. They could have given me a citation, been happy to pay for it and go through the process in my own court. Nevertheless, thank you so much for being here. Experience matters. Qualifications matter. I ask for your vote. Do your homework. Do I think that my opponent is capable of doing this job? Absolutely. Do I think she's the best kid to do it right now? Absolutely not. And there's a distinction between those two things. There's a difference between a general physician, a cardiologist, and a cardiothoracic surgeon. You go to your cardiologist for one thing, the cardiologist doesn't do the surgery because that's not his professional expertise. You got to start somewhere. This is not the court to start in. This is not the court to start in. 34,000 cases, 7th busiest court in the state of Texas. Not the place for on-the-job training and having to learn the vocabulary of what's coming through the court system and in the cases that are being filed. I would appreciate your vote. Come out and vote. It's coming soon. It's going to be entertaining at early voting starting February 17th. Would love to see you. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all please give both of these candidates a hand. That concludes that forum, and I'll turn it back over to Jason to conclude
right.
our evening.
Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Justice Chambers, for moderating. He did a great job. I want to also thank our AV team because all this happens because of them. And I want to thank, yes, Johnny, guys, and the Eagle Forum board members. Would you stand so we can thank you as well for putting on this evening? Next week, we'll be back here again, 6:30. The doors open at 6. We have on the docket Senate District 4, House District 3, and JP 5, right? Next week, right here. Be safe. God bless. Have a great evening.